Hello and welcome to iFix Old Stuff with Thomas Hughes. Today we're looking at the secret life of input and output jacks. It's riveting stuff. Okay, in front of you today I've got 5 very common variations of the 1/4-inch input jack. We call it that because the plug that fits into the jack has a 1/4-inch diameter, fits in like so. These are used in guitar amps and all sorts of PA equipment. Like that. This one here is called a mono jack because, as we can see, we have a ground here. This is the ground and this is the tip. Okay, and when we plug that in, right, we have one signal path, one channel of information. Okay, so tip and sleeve. Sleeve is the ground and the tip is your positive. And then we have the lugs right here. You can visually see that this one is connecting to the sleeve here, and then this one, if we follow that path around, it's going to the tip, which is your positive. And you can check, if you had a complicated jack, you could verify that with a multimeter very simply. Okay, so that's your mono jack there. That would be an example of that would be the output jack on a normal guitar pedal, right? Would use something like that. Second variation is the stereo jack. Okay, so on this one we've got, as you can see, we've got an extra prong here, and here's a stereo plug. Okay, and we have this extra thing called the ring. Okay, so what we can do there when we plug that in, we get now 2 channels of information, 2 signal paths. So we've got the tip and the ring here, and then the sleeve is again connecting to ground. And if you actually examine the jack, you will see that this one is the ground, this one here is going over to the ring, and then this one is going to the tip. Okay. So that's that one there. This would be used in headphone jacks. Things like that, because then we can use one section for the right signal, one section for the left signal, and then our ground, a common ground for both. Okay. Some interesting things happen when we use a mono jack in a stereo plug. If we notice when we plug that in, right, the actual part that should be hitting the sleeve is now grounded. And what we use that for is the input on a guitar effects pedal. And what we do is we connect the battery negative to here, and we connect the regular ground of the circuit here. So when we plug that in, that actually turns the battery on and off. That's why when you unplug your pedal, even if you have a battery, the battery doesn't drain. Right? So that's what we can use that for. So that's kind of a neat little trick, and you'll see that in lots and lots of pedals. Right? It's a cool little added feature there. Now what about this jack here? This looks like it might be a stereo jack. As you can see, it has the same amount of pins. However, it's not. It has a switch right in here. Okay, so I'll turn that so you can see it. Okay, so this is your ground. This is your tip connection. However, this one is that switch, and we would call that a normally closed switch. Let's see if I can get that in there right. Those 2 contacts are connected together when the jack is nothing's connected to it. It's just sitting there like that. We call that a normally closed. When we plug in, that switch, when you plug in a mono cable, that switch is now open. So why would we need that? Okay, well, we need this. We can call this like an if this then that. Okay, if at rest the tip is connected to this connection, when we plug it in, it breaks that connection. Why would we use that? This is very, very common on guitar amplifiers. Fender amplifiers and so on use this exact same jack. And what you do is you connect this extra switch here, you connect that to ground. Then what happens is when you plug in, you're operating as normal. When you pull the cord out, the input signal is grounded. Okay, and that's why your amp, when you unplug it, is not noisy. Right? And if you want to test that, unplug your cable from your amplifier, pull that out, and notice that it's very quiet. Now do the same thing from your guitar, and you'll notice your amp is noisy. Right? Because the signal is not being grounded. It's almost like turning the volume knob right off on your guitar. Okay? So that's what we use that for. Here's a mono version here. It's just a variation on a theme. This one here, it's very similar to this Switchcraft jack here, in that we've got a common ground, but on this side, we have that normally closed switch again. Okay. This is used on PV guitar amplifiers, I believe, exactly for that reason. This would be your input jack. This side is grounded. This side goes to the first input stage, and when you plug in, we have signal. When you pull out, it's nice and quiet. Okay. Let's take this switch idea a step further. This is a jack that's also very common. I believe this one's made by Neutrik. Yes, it says Neutrik on it. Okay, it's plastic, and as you can see, we have these 3 connections here, so it's a stereo jack. Okay, so we would use that kind of a connection. If you notice here, now we've got the tip, the ring, and the sleeve each have their own switch. So that is your normal connection, and this is a switch which we can actually interrupt signals. We could have a signal coming through this way, and then when we plug in, we've interrupted that signal. Okay, and you will see these used all over the place in many, many different amplifiers. We can use this for interrupting signal path, which we're going to talk about in a future video. It can also be used to ground out the signal. Right? If we take this one and we connect it to ground, when nothing is plugged into the jack, it's grounded out the signal, and the amp is quiet. Right? And you'll see these in you can see these in a mono version. I've seen them as that, and as a stereo version. What I do is I only stock the stereo version, and if I need a mono one, I just pull out this middle connector here. It's very easy to pull out. So that's what I do with those ones. These are very common, used for speaker jacks, input jacks, patching on a guitar amplifier. And we're going to do more discussion on that in a future video. So there you go. There is 5 different input jacks that you will see, and these are in amplifiers all over the place. In a future video, we're going to take a look at this even further and show you exactly how to use these for troubleshooting. Right? Some very common problems and how to fix it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.